moving forward with our last session for the day, which is a panel discussion on the topic, the Agile approach to CMMI. We have Bala Murali as the moderator, and as panelists, we have Samya, Destin, Srijit, and Arunima. And before we begin with the panel discussion, I would like to thank our founding sponsor, Innovation Roots, which is a consulting and training service provider, helping organizations to achieve business agility and beyond. It is one of the leaders and pioneers of niche publishing services and is well known for content collaboration with global thought leaders, authors, and creators. For more information, please visit www.innovationroots.com. And I would also like to thank our sponsor, Agile, which is a product offering from Tata Consultancy Services Limited. It is a purely cloud-based enterprise agile planning tool along with DevOps capabilities. Enterprises can use Agile to adopt agile practices or scale across multiple Scrum and Kanban teams using enterprise scaling frameworks such as Brave and Agile. You can try out Agile for free for up to 20 users for 1 year by signing up at agile.io. Or you can also reach out to us for any inquiries or exclusive product demo. I encourage everyone to check out the Agile page on Agile Network India website for more information. Over to you, Bala Murali. We would love to hear about you.
Okay, thank you, Shreya, for the introduction, and I would like to thank all the people who has been working behind this to ensure that we are running the show in a very successful manner. I'm Bala Murali, and I'm happy to be the moderator for this particular session. I'm working as Director Quality at SFO Technologies Private Limited, NS Group company. Basically, I have completed my master's in MTech from IIT Kanpur and have been in the industry for the last 23 years. I was fortunate to work in multiple software quality models like ISO 9001, CMMI, ISO 27001, etc. And with a lot of pride, I can say that I have led the team which was first in the world to go for CMMI version 2.0 ML5 appraisal. So that is all about me, and along with me, I have a very strong, powerful panel members with me, and I would request Samia Salim to introduce herself now.
Hi, hello everyone. Myself, Samia Salim. I'm working as a software certification engineer at Garmin now. I have more than 15 years of experience, and my core expertise is in model implementation, quality management system, and metrics analysis. I have worked with implementation of a lot of international models, which include CMMI, DEV, ISO 9001, ISO 27001, ISO 26262, TO7178P, and ISO 13485, and the list goes on. And I'm honored to say that I was part of a review team of the CMMI version 2.0 model. And thank you, Agile Network India, for giving us a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, that was very interesting, Samia, to hear about you. And I move on to the next panel member. I request Srijit to introduce himself.
Yep, thank you, Bala Murali. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Srijit, currently working as Deputy Manager, Business Excellence Team at Quest Global, Trivandrum. I'm having around 15 years of experience in software process and quality management activities. My areas of interest include implementation and maintenance of quality and ISMS systems, including ISO, CMMI, DEV, Automotive SPICE, ISO 26262, and TISAX, to name a few. I had the opportunity of being an assessment team member for CMMI v2.0 benchmark appraisal last year, and I've also had the opportunity to implement base-based processes at a couple of OEM and Tier 1 locations. On my academics, I'm an BTech graduate with MBA in Operations Research, and here I am really happy to be in platform. Thank you, Agile Network India, and hope you're all doing well and staying safe. Thank you. Over to you, Bala Murali.
Yeah, that was nice to hear about you, Srijit. And I move on to the next panelist, Destin.
Hi, thanks very much. My name is Dustin. I work as an architect. Mostly work on artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies. And I be part of the Microsoft Regional Director community as well as the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. And I mostly talks and I wrote books on the artificial intelligence area and speaks in some of the international conferences of the Microsoft and the Google platforms. So I have around 14 years of experience, 40 plus of experience in the technology. Mostly works on these areas and also works on the DevOps implementation with agile practices. That's with me. So perhaps I can contribute some insights into the DevOps practices around with the agile. Thank you, Agile India team. Over to Balamurli.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Justin. Justin, you are adding a lot of colors, a lot of flavors, and increasing the width of this particular panel. And I move on to the next, last but not the least, Arunima. I request you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Balramurli, and thank you all for joining today's session. Thanks, Agile Network, for organizing such a wonderful session for 2 days. We know that it has not been easy to coordinate such a session during this time. To talk about myself, I'm currently a principal product manager with Finastra. I started my career with Infosys, and I've handled multiple roles, including product management, product delivery, product implementation, customer support, and so on. I have around 22 years of experience, pretty much in the banking domain. I also got an opportunity to work with projects which have undergone CMMI assessment. And recently, in the last year, I have led a scaled agile framework transformation project in Finastra. That is what, and I'm also passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm the regional lead for Women at Finastra initiatives at Finastra. That's all about me. Thank you so much, Balmavi.
Thank you, Arunima, and thank you all the panelists. So it's really wonderful to have such a eminent panel members on board. I could see, like, there is a big cross section of team who has been part of this particular panel, starting from hardcore practitioners or the process experts who define the process for the company, somebody who has reviewed the CMMI model as such coming into the picture, somebody who is a real practitioner and architect coming into it, and somebody who has done real agile transformation for the organization moving in. I think we do justice to the topic of the discussion for the day with agile and CMMI going together. And finally, we have someone who can really take this discussion beyond CMMI into automotive spice and other related standard also coming in. So this is actually wonderful. And I would like to start off with the base concept or the base debate, which is all in air, wherein which the question is simple, straight: can agile coexist with CMMI? Whenever we talk about a model, or any standard practices, the first thought coming into mind is like, of process, documentation. And the moment when I talk about agile says about, like, no documentation, people over documentation, nothing. I mean, go ahead, do it, show to the customer, and move it. That's what the industry or the people speak about agile. Now the question comes back of whether agile can coexist with CMMI. Are they really supporting each other, or is there a conflict between agile and CMMI? Now you go for CMMI, you cannot have agile, or you have an agile process, you cannot go for CMMI. Is it like that? So this is exactly what we are looking forward to hear from this panelist. And I always welcome questions from the viewers, so that you can use a chat window, I guess, and we can have the discussion at the end of the session. We will definitely try to reserve some time for the discussions. As a person who has been practicing this, I would like to start with a note that I strongly believe agile go hand in hand with CMMI, at least in high maturity. Now, there may be a surprise element coming in, basically because whenever the organization moves to CMMI, level 3 is something which all the organization goes, and level 4 and level 5, we feel like, it's going to be a very tough job. I mean, a lot of data, a lot of documentation which is required. But what I have seen from my experience across, like, I said, like, why I was so happy and I was lucky to have the opportunity to get the world's first CMMI version 2.0 appraisal done at SFO Technologies, my company where I'm working in. And there were at least 4 agile projects which were showcased to the lead appraiser, wherein which we could successfully demonstrate the practices of CMMI inside. One thing which we have noticed is that in agile projects, high maturity is pretty easy to be implemented. Basically, because in a conventional waterfall project, you get a data point once the project is completed, which ultimately means, like, you get a data point once in 4 to 6 months. Whereas in 6 months, you got 12 points in an agile project. So, to the best of my understanding and the practices which I have seen across, I feel agile is best fit for CMMI, or CMMI is also best fit for agile. I don't want to put it in one above the other. They really coexist, especially in the high maturity arena. So with that, I mean, this is my perspective about agile and CMMI coexistence in the entire world. But it will be really interesting if we could know what the CMMI Institute thinks about it. We have a panelist who has been part of the model review, CMMI version 2.0 model review, Samia. So I would like to put up the question to Samia on what is your perspective, or what is CMMI Institute's perspective on agile coexisting with CMMI. Over to you, Samia.
Thank you, Balamurli. And yeah, this is, as you have rightly mentioned, this is one of the long debated topic. And I don't know, whenever, from the time in which I started implementation of CMMI, I get this question a lot. How can you, implement agile framework into an, CMMI framework into an agile development and agile project? So that's one of the reasons why, which I cannot emphasize enough, that CMMI version 2.0 model has given us a very clear perspective on how we can adapt agile development into the CMMI framework. CMMI version 2.0 model is giving you examples on how these agile practices, agile approach, or agile project can be implemented inside a CMMI framework for each practice area. So CMMI version 2.0's architecture itself has been designed in such a way that this model can be used in multiple contexts. And I think they are trying to improve and trying to introduce more context in future too. So one of the most interesting fact which interested me a lot when we are discussing this topic is that these two approaches, the CMMI framework and agile approach, it's been introduced into the industry as problem solvers for one of the most safety critical industry which we have known, that's defense. And agile is introduced as a problem solver for schedule deviations, the on-time delivery issues of software development, and whereas CMMI is introduced as a framework for process improvement. So this actually, by birth, actually go hand in hand. So, and another interesting fact is that we don't hesitate to implement, CMMI in a framework or CMMI into a project which follows iterative and incremental software development. Whereas the basis or the foundation of agile approach itself is iterative and incremental development. I always viewed the Scrum, which is the most commonly used agile framework, as an iterative and incremental development, which is laced with management principles, which makes it a one of the best candidate for CMMI implementation. And you have rightly mentioned, like, that an agile project generates a lot of data points, whereas more than a normal waterfall project. So a Scrum project generates data once in 2 weeks or as per the sprint duration. And one of the main roadblocks for people to adapt Agile into CMMI is the minimal documentation. And Agile is not focusing on no documentation. That's a misunderstanding. So Agile focuses on minimal documentation. And an important point to understand when we are implementing CMMI is that CMMI gives you a framework or gives you instructions on what to do rather than how to do it. This how to do it can be defined by us or the project or the organization. So CMMI looks for evidence, not the 20-page document to show that the objectives of the practice area is met. So you can show this evidence using output of tools. You can use tools like a requirement management tool, which tags your requirement from start to end of the project, or you can use continuous integration frameworks like BXD, that is a business component and XML-driven test framework. This is a paper which is presented by Balamurli Radish, who was one of the previous speakers, and Pradeep PP and myself, and this has won the best of the best in 2012 STC. You can use any framework like continuous integration frameworks, and you can show the output of this framework as an evidence to show that the objectives of this practice areas are met. So whatever method you use, we have to focus to show that the practice area objectives are met inside the project. So the interviews, the interviews in CMMI appraisal, that's been done to check if the project team and the departments, they understood what the CMMI process area is talking about. And if they are producing an output which adds value to the project or the organization. And CMMI is not looking for output which does not add value to the organization. So I would like to conclude saying that CMMI, CMMI provides a robust and mature framework with project management and support practice areas, which can help deploying and improving the agile approach. So this goes hand in hand by birth, and I think CMMI version 2.0 model has shown us a lot, saying that giving us examples and of agile practice areas, agile approach.
Okay, Samia, it was nice hearing from you about your views about the agile practices and CMMI going hand in hand. And it was quite interesting about what you have mentioned about the paper on BXD. So yeah, for the interest of the participants, if you can share the link of the paper in the chat box, it will be really great. And
yeah, I can.
well, yeah, that welcome. So when Samia was talking about the frameworks which can really help implementation of the projects in a faster way, and the way she was saying about it's not no documentation in Agile, but minimal documentation or efficient documentation, which is coming in Agile. I would like to hear from an expert in our panel who has a lot of experience in running the projects in DevOps. I look forward to you, Dustin, on how the minimum documentation in Agile can be implemented within the CMMI framework using the DevOps, and what are the advantages of having DevOps brought into the system along with the practices. Over to you, Dustin.
Thanks, Varangi. So we can map each maturity level in CMMI to the ceremonies and practices in Agile as the two approaches focus, mainly on the quality and the timely delivery of the projects. These are the two aspects we mostly look forward in each of the project. And also another important aspects we look is how to cut down the cost involved or the redundant process or overhead, how we can reduce that. These are the main three areas we look when we go into any development activities, right? So before going into the details about the DevOps, let me give you an example. Like suppose you want to cook a dish. Okay, we can cook a dish in different ways. If you cook from the earlier days, you have a vessels, that is saying you have a stove, or it may be some wood you use to cook the dishes, right? So if you cook in the nowadays, the vessels are changed. The stove you use may be changed from an electric stove or maybe a gas stove kind of thing, right? But the ingredients you use are almost same, and the output you get is almost the same thing. So that's the same thing I have to say about the CMMI and Agile. This Agile and CMI goes hand in hand. Only change is on the way that you cook, the faster you deliver the things. That is the thing that I found from an Agile perspective incorporated with the CMI things. Okay, so if you compare between CMI and Agile, the CMI looks for most of the things in a very process oriented or a documented way. The Agile also is not like we don't have to document any of the things. Most of the companies, most of the companies are auditable, right? So we need evidence that, like Samya said, in CMI also we are looking for the evidence. Okay, it's not that we are moving away from the process side. So we have to go with process along with how we can get the things faster delivery, right? In CMMI, we tell about the causal analysis and the resolution, defects analysis, etc. Right? In a similar way, in Agile also we have similar things like retrospective and action taken in Agile. So maybe the frequency that we do in CMMI, maybe a waterfall model, maybe in a end of each project, but maybe in Agile we are doing every week. That is a change I found in both these approaches. Another thing most of the people are telling their RC charts and stakeholder management might not be same in Agile, but might not be the same. So it's in a different naming convention we use. It's like we have a product owner, we have a Scrum team mapping, everything we are doing when we do the start of the project, right? And another important aspect is on the status reporting and stakeholder management collaboration. So maybe CMI waterfall models, maybe it's maybe using at the end of the project, but on the Agile things we may be doing at the along with the projects. That's the thing I see the changes in that, and also on the CM audit kind of things. That is another area that every time we go into any of the technical speaker sessions, we get a question like how you do the CM audit kind of thing if you are doing an Agile kind of thing, right? So it's nothing different. So we have these kind of things done through automated tools. That's what I think Margoli also told initially, because something called a DevOps. DevOps can be implemented using Azure DevOps or Jenkins. So there are different tools each organizations are using. So maybe some organization using Azure, some organization are using some different tools, but these are different technologies only. So if we coming into the other area, how the CMMI things can be applied in an Agile organization. So that is another question we get in most of the organization when we talk, or in the sessions we talk. So this is a cultural change. It's not that we cannot do Agile and CMMI together. So the process has to be changed. The process has to be documented in a way. So coming into the question that Balamurli asked, how the DevOps can be help on doing a faster CMI and Agile process management kind of thing. So most of the organization moving away from manual documentation side. It may be on the requirement gathering, or it may be on the test case preparation, or it may be on the unit testing kind of thing, right? So the DevOps give a flexibility. It's not like we don't need to write a test case, or it's not like we don't need a requirement gathering document. All things are there, but the way you capture the requirement or way you do the testing, test cases is different. So earlier you do a documentation of 60 pages, and that's no one have that much time to read and they're documenting. Okay, so if you want to have a login screen for an application, we write around 1 or 2 pages, but not that process is changed. In Agile with the DevOps, we write only the use cases. We need this text box as a login username, and this we need a password and a button. That is the use case. So that is the only change we've done. So you have in all the DevOps tools give you an option of exporting these use cases into a document, or a Word document or Excel document also. So, and even you can use this tool to give an evidence to the CMI process auditors also. And coming into the testing thing. So unit testing is another area that we focus, and most of the organization also insist. So that is a doing as a practice now. Even development team itself is writing the unit testing. So DevOps tools gives us a flexibility, incorporate unit testing as part of the development itself. You don't have to do unit testing separately. You write your code and you write the unit testing codes. While you execute the code, you have the unit test cases also prepared and executed, so that you can give it as a evidence to the CMI auditors. Another coming into the test cases. Earlier, you have a very big document and you write test cases against that. That process is changed. You have a use cases now. You take the use case. I told about initially you have a login screen. You have two buttons like or maybe one test box for username and another test box for entering the password and a cancel button and submit button. That is the use case for the development, right? Similarly, you write a test case against that use case. You enter a name for this, you accept a special character in the password session or you need a capital letter in the password session. That is the test case that test case is now doing. So now companies are automated these things also. There is most of the companies are going away from the manual testing. It's going on the automated testing kind of things using some different technologies, right? So that is the way. So if we execute these use cases using any of the automated mechanism, you're also getting the unit test result. So that is more than enough for you to see, give into the auditor in CMI practices. You don't have to write separate, you don't have to waste time on doing this. And also, as I said initially, all these test cases have an option in DevOps tools to execute or export it on Excel or even a Word document. That is also possible. Or I don't think CMD auditors are now insisting like a documented version of that. They can even see the DevOps tool. That is, no one can edit this or no one can manipulate this data in the system itself. So it captures the system date, time, and who authored it, who written it, everything. So it is more authority giving into through DevOps tools. So earlier maybe you are documenting, you have an option of changing that anytime. But now it's all are documented through the system. No one can edit it. It's a proof. You are giving a proof that this is written in this time and this is executed at this time. And last, moving into the build. One of the aspects is the build. We are writing when it is built. The build process we are documenting it, right? So now you don't have to document these things. You execute, you return a unit testing, you return the test cases, you return the use cases, you write the code against the use cases in the DevOps tool. So once you build it, all the people who development is involved in it are merged into the code and make it as a package by default in the DevOps tools and moving into the production or in the QA stage. So these all are automated. The admin team can just tick or approve the process into Dev. It's automated to automatically deploy into Dev. So once it is moving into QA, the admin team has to just take, the QA team has to just tick approve the build. It will automatically build into the QA. So once everything is done, another process, if you have a change management team or a CAP process, something like that, you can done that and integrate back into the DevOps tool. Once that approved in the CAP or once it is approved in the change management, all the processes are in there, you automatically build and deploy it into production also. So it's all documented. So what time it went to production, what time it went to QA, how many bugs you have, how it executed, how much time it took to execute it. Did you get any bug in the production? So these all are documented. You don't have to do a manual intervention there. So that's the beauty of having a DevOps with Agile. So Agile can do more with CMM, the DevOps tools. And I don't think CMMI is different from Agile. So the way that
That
we
is yeah, that was an excellent input, Dustin, which is coming in. Actually, I really love the point which you have said in the sense like, nothing can be tampered once you go ahead with the DevOps tools because it's a tool and a time-stamped one and it's perfect built into the system. So that has been really great input which has been coming in from you. And moving further on, Arunima, you have been a person who has been working as in multi roles, controlling the projects management and things like that. So we have heard from the process experts that the Agile and CMMI coexist. Dustin has thrown a lot of light into how well the DevOps or the tools can be brought in, which can really help in coexisting and things like that. But what exactly do you think, as a practitioner who has been doing this in the past and an agile transformer, do you think that these two frameworks really coexist? Or is scaled agile framework a move in this direction? We are looking forward for hearing from you.
Yeah, thanks. To me, to me, actually, Agile is a mindset. It is a philosophy with some guiding principle that we can apply to any context, be it a project delivery, be it product delivery, product development, or even a customer implementation. Even Agile can be followed in process rollouts in organization. Now, last year, I happened to hear a seminar from Vinod Narayan on minimal agile, which also talked about how we can, adopt agile in our own life. Agile is a method where we can set some targets and move towards achieving that targets in a providing frequent delivery or achieving certain set targets in a very short time frame. Okay, so if we were to consider agile in our own life, say for example, if you want to have a habit of reading books, develop a habit of reading books, maybe I want to set a target of in 2 sprints I want to read 1 book and so on. So in a year I'll cover 6 books, something of that sort. So it is actually something which can be adopted pretty much everywhere. Whereas CMMI, when it comes to CMMI, it's a set of standards and practices that quantify certain value for the organization. CMMI indicates a delivery capability as well as the maturity of the organization. So when we say organization is agile or following agile, it shows the delivery is done in a specified way. Okay, or the client can expect the deliveries in this period of time. However, when we say that an organization is CMMI level 5, it indicates certain level of best practices that are adopted within the organization, and it also gives an assurance of the quality you can expect from the deliverables. CMMI, in fact, strengthens and scale Agile. Scaled Agile framework, as popularly known as SAFe, it creates an opportunity for organizations to create and follow a framework of delivery, pretty much something which aligns to CMMI. Now, SAFe puts a structure to Agile delivery. I would like to, think about my first Agile project, which was done way back in 2005, when ANZ, one of the top banks in Australia, gave a project to Infosys, and they wanted it to be implemented in Agile. At that point of time, I think the Indian community were very new to Agile, and I clearly remember ANZ have given us a lot of documentation about US use cases and things like that. So later, when I studied Agile in depth, there was this talk about no documentation, but I was relating to what ANZ have given. They wanted us to follow delivery in Agile, but they also followed the documentation. They had, I wouldn't say minimal documentation, they had all the required documentation which is involved in a product development. Now, when we talk about Scaled Agile framework, Scaled Agile frameworks comes with different configuration. They have set processes and metrics defined for each program context. Now, they come with 4 configurations. One is essential safe, which includes team and agile product delivery, which can be adopted in pretty much any product with any project which we are doing. Another configuration is for large solution, where multiple companies come together to create a large solution of an enterprise-wide solution for a client. There's a specific set of framework which is defined for delivering large solutions. Portfolio safe, similarly, is for large portfolios within an organization. And then we have full safe, which is actually for enterprise software delivery. Now, Scaled Agile framework, what it does is it brings some structure around Agile framework. And it also have defined the streamlined processes for multiple configurations. Okay, so that it becomes easier for organizations to adopt. And in my view, as a person who have implemented, who have been part of projects and organizational level CMMI assessment, as well as implementing Agile projects, various configurations of Agile, including Scrum, Kanban, and Scaled Agile. What my feeling is, a project, when it is done in Scaled Agile manner, it actually aligns to what CMMI is expecting. There is not much we need to do to ensure that that particular project follows CMMI standards. Now, Scaled Agile framework brings in the PI planning aspects, the PI execution and PI delivery. All of this, the processes are defined. So as a practitioner or as a new person who is coming into Scaled Agile framework or Agile for that matter, they get the entire set of framework defined clearly to run their project easily. And the outcome can be easily mapped to what the CMMI is expecting. Now, Samia mentioned about minimal documentation. I also talked about my experience with ANC, which had documentation involved. Scaled Agile framework also expects some amount of documentation, some amount of metrics is to be produced as part of this, the review processes and things like that. And to me, in the current context, especially in the current context when the world is so uncertain, some amount of documentation is required for project delivery. So we cannot go without documentation is what I wanted to share. And with the extent of processes which SAFE have defined, Scaled Agile framework has defined, it makes projects to be easier aligned with CMMI requirements. And today, see, in between, when in early days when organizations were following CMMI, and later when Agile came, the whole focus shifted to Agile. But nowadays, organizations realize the value of both, because Agile delivery is giving some value, whereas CMMI assessment or the CMMI level which they achieve is giving a different value to the organization. And organizations realize both are equally important, and more organizations are adopting both Agile delivery as well as CMMI assessment, as we see. That's what my perspective about the question of whether Agile can coexist with CMMI. I am in for it. I feel organizations also understand the value, and they are trying to take the best of both models and to leverage and optimize the value they give to their clients.
Yeah, that has been an interesting explanation given, Arunima. There are a lot of questions coming in the panel chat also, which once we complete Srijit's discussion also, we can come back to that. Now, we have heard a lot about CMMI now, Agile and CMMI. Srijit, I will come back to you on CMMI, but first and primarily, I would like to hear from you about the coexistence of Agile with automotive framework. I mean, the question is I have a lot of interest in that, basically because all the automotive industry is going for the next revolution with the electric cars and electric trucks coming in. So a lot of changes are happening in the industry. And how do you find, as an expert in automotive spice, how do you find the coexistence of automotive spice and Agile inside the entire thing?
Sure, Balamuli. I would slightly rephrase the discussion as the relevance of Agile and A-Spice and how they can coexist and the challenges faced. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Sure. On the first question, I will answer in two aspects. The first one, see, the current global automotive software market is going for a rapid change. The growth is expected around 2 times from the current market spend. So in the next 10 years, right, we are going to see a lot of changes which we have not seen in the last 50 years or so. And automotive, being one of the oldest engineering industries, is seeing a lot of transformation. So this topic is really interesting and good to debate on. With this, increased features coming in, right, the automotive manufacturers are competing each other to pushing these features into the current vehicle. Let's take a budget car, right, in the market. You see a lot of features like touch screens, infotainment systems, sensors, camera, whatnot. And even for the high-end vehicles, right, you see a lot of additional features like adaptive cruise control, collision detection, autonomous driving, and as you said, Balamurli, we are going for the electrical generation. And what this has caused is that there's tremendous competition among the suppliers to bring in more and more features within a shorter development life cycle. Right. Earlier, it used to be a conventional waterfall model wherein you have got enough time to push in your features to the market. But now things are changing. What this has caused is that automotive industry is now slowly moving to a software-centric industry, wherein people expect features much faster. And this is where I think Agile can play a really important role in, bringing these features much faster to the market. Now, it sounds a bit assuming when you say that automotive is going for Agile. Yes, past 10 or so years, automotive industry is also slowly moving to Agile, without which they cannot survive with this current competition. And having said that, you know, increasing the code base, right? Increasing number of embedded systems and code base in the software, there's a risk of quality and reliability. Again, the pressure is on the suppliers to deliver faster software with minimum bugs, right? If you see current automobile, there is around 100 million lines of code. uh, it's quite interesting to see that. If you take entire source code of Facebook or Boeing, it's around 50 million lines of code. So you're sitting in a vehicle on over 100 million lines of code, and any bug, right, could lead to a failure of the system, can lead to an accident, right? Earlier, right, if you see, if your car stereo did not work, you wouldn't bother at all. You will restart and then you will drive off. But now, if your software fails, right, your system won't start. So that's the level of quality expected from the automotive software suppliers. This is where ASPICE comes into picture. Like the best practices of ASPICE, such as the requirements analysis, design methods, coding standards, static analysis, and mandatory 3 levels of testing, right, from unit integration and software testing, and the guidelines on traceability from your customer use case to the bug maintained at the supply side. All these best practices, right, would ensure the suppliers are building the product right. So to sum up, uh, Agile would help you to bring these features much faster to the market, and ASPICE definitely has to be there to ensure quality and reliability. So first part of our question, yes, both are relevant and both has to be existent in a single harmonious fashion. Now, yeah,
Please,
second,
please continue.
sorry, yeah. Having said that, as our previous speakers, Arunima and Destin and Simon mentioned, there are challenges in this also. Especially when you take an automotive program, right? A car line program would have multiple stakeholders, right? From your vehicle manufacturer, then tier 2 and tier 3, tier 1 suppliers. The whole supply chain is pretty huge, spread across multiple geographies. And each of these entities have got their own quality management systems, processes. But even when you say agile, they are following customized agile processes, right? So when you go for a enterprise solution, having a seamless integration between these entities is still a challenge, right? To have a common set of documents, processes, it's still a big challenge. And especially the challenge becomes much harder when you have certain customers in certain areas who are not, very willing to change their way of working. They're very cautious about adopting new changes, especially the Japanese customers. They're very cautious. So this brings a real challenge in having a seamless integration of tools and documentation to ensure that we deliver the software with the right set of processes. Again, we have solutions for this, as Arunima said, right? The enterprise safe, right? Where you can run the whole program at agile mode, with individual suppliers can uh, choose their own development methods, and then at the overall level, they can go for the Scrum model. So we have solutions to cause this challenge. And finally, one more point is like ASpace also brings a very valued point here to have joint review with all these suppliers, right? For example, in our PA planning, we could include all the stakeholders to have a consistent approach to the implementation plan. So there are challenges, but again, to sum up, ASpace and Agile should coexist. And for our viewers' interest, in fact, automotive teams are coming up with a new model called Agile Spice, which is similar to what we have in Cmmi V2.0, specifically for agile development projects.
Yeah, Srijit, that was quite
That's it
interesting
from me, Valamandu.
information
Thank
which
you.
you have shared about it. Like, yes, as you rightly said, like, the previously probably like, a software failure will result in you are not able to hear a song. And from there, we have
Yes,
transmitted to a scenario where, you cannot have the car started. Amen. So that really shows the
exactly.
importance which we will be having in the upcoming days and things like that. So really, really interesting points, and good to hear about the Agile Spice also coming in. I mean that's going to be something which will be of a lot of interest for the industry in the upcoming days. So I think it has been a lot
Very
of
much.
interesting thoughts which has been shared by all of us, like. We said about the coexistence of Agile and CMMI, starting from the standards requirements itself, that it has been stated about it. We talked about the tools which can really support the Agile industry, and the real practices also has been seen how the CMMI and Agile can go hand in hand. And thanks, Srijit, for taking it to the automotive level, automotive spice level. So I believe, like, there has been a lot of inputs which has come in the entire panel discussion so far. But there are a few questions also. In fact, there are many questions which has come in the chat box. But with the interest of time, I can pick a few questions which I have shortlisted, being asked by multiple peoples and multiple debates has gone in. So one of the things is, like, see, whenever we talk about, let it be CMMI, automotive spice, ISO, or any standard, one of the questions which goes in is, like, you have the examination coming in, the appraisals or the audits, as we say, and audits looks for documentation. So how best these challenges can be faced when we are running a project in Agile? Maybe Srijit, can you try to take this question up?
Yes, Balamurali, it's a bit tricky question, and since we have the QA team and the practitioners, I have to be very diplomatic here. Uh, okay, like for any process, right? There are two aspects to it. One is the compliance internally, and the certification process, as you said. Now, following a process internally, it's much easier because you know the process, you have defined it, and your internal auditors also know the process, and they kind of handshake with the process owners and practitioners to go with the process, right? The challenge comes when you go for external certification. The word here is external, right? They are external to our organization. They do not know your process, and they have just come for 4 to 5 days. That's the challenge when you have to show a demonstrable evidence to it. And as Destin earlier mentioned, if you have got right tools, right, this becomes much easier. But challenge is that thin line between what is required for your process for your customers and what is required for your external examinations to be successful. That thin line is very challenging. And to my experience, I've seen that proper usage of tools like Atlassian or other collaborative tools could help us a lot in this situation. But again, you have to spend a little bit of time internally to make that documents, which is kind of internal, to be more presentable to your external auditors. And I know having the right process framework in place with a lightweight quality management system, and if you especially understand the CMMI model, right, it talks about value and intent. If you clearly understand that value and intent and you use the right process, I think this should not be a big challenge. Second point is, like, you're going for a certification of CMMI brand, right? The market potential of that brand is pretty huge. There's tremendous opportunity there from the market perspective. So when you think that market potential, the additional spend that you put in the internal documentation is really worth it. So my take is that yes, there are challenges, but you have to go for it.
So I would like to club two questions which has come in and put it up to the panel. Like, the question is, like, does all the practice areas of CMMI is applicable for Agile? That is the question number one. Does all the practice areas of CMMI applicable in case of Agile? And the complementary question is, like, we are already an Agile implemented organization. What is the additional value CMMI is going to provide us? So I would like to club these questions and put it up. Maybe who can take it up? Samia?
First of all, the applicability of practice areas, it's totally depending upon what you are creating or developing. So it's based upon the project. All the practice areas, if you analyze, it can be applicable. What as I said earlier, the Scrum is actually iterative and incremental development, which has requirements till testing phase, till delivery, and it has laced up with a lot of management practice areas like planning, estimation, data collection, causal analysis, and resolution. And if you feel like maybe supplier management may not be applicable for you, so that applicability is actually based upon the organization and the project. That's about the applicability of the practice areas. And what's the next question?
We have already implemented the Agile framework. What value does CMMI add?
Yeah, CMMI is actually an improvement framework, process improvement framework. So if you look into the data collection and high maturity practice areas, it always focuses on improving your process. So you have a process built in, you are collecting data from these projects, and you are analyzing what you have achieved and what you can improve. So it always, every project has an opportunity for improvement, room for improvement. So that is where CMMI can add value for an already implemented projects.
Okay. Arunima, would you like to add to it? Like, you have been implementing Agile in the very, very recent times. So maybe you have a lot of thoughts on that.
Sure, thanks, Bhavani. In fact, I agree with Samia that Agile, as I said, is see, we have a framework for delivery. Now, when we go to clients and say that okay, we follow Agile, they're very happy about it because they know that they can expect deliveries in a certain amount of time. Okay, that's what we are telling them. But when we say CMMI, we are CMMI level this or that, it also attaches some value to it. It quantifies the practices which we are following. It also ensures that the delivery you are providing comes with a certain amount of quality. So that's the difference CMMI can bring to an Agile organization. It quantifies what the organization is delivering in terms of quality and in terms of best practices. A second thing which I wanted to call out is CMMI talks about sharing these best practices across the organization. Now, in an Agile organization, two different projects can follow different forms of Agile, and they probably may not be sharing the best practices between them and adopting these practices. Whereas CMMI in an organization, if you follow, it also allows sharing of best practices across the organization so that each project can learn from some other project which have done something in a better way. Now, while we say Agile is some methodology, every process, even if it is CMMI or Agile or any other process, it can be streamlined to the context in which we are working. Now, how do we make best use of that? How do we apply the practical aspects of it to maximize the value for clients? That is where the difference can come in. Okay, and CMMI actually sets a framework for maximizing the value for clients. That's what my belief is.
Okay. So I would like to thank each of the panel members for their value adding comments, which has come in all way across. And I've tried to filter out the best the questions within which has come in the chat box and bring it up for the discussion. From the panel side, I would like to thank each one of you for your valuable contributions. And I would like to thank Agile India and all the participants who has been there with this panel. Over to you, Shreya.
Thank you so much, Bala Murali, and thank you so much to all the panelists for all your valuable contribution and for your time. And thank you so much. We look forward to such more sessions by Thiruvanthapuram Chapter. Thank you for sharing such wide range of expertise. Thank you.